Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today. Oh no, I always do that. I gotta make it live. The soundboard has to be made live, guys. Yeah, I
No
use the
problem.
soundboard in case you couldn't tell. All right, let's start over here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us today Isaac Anderson. And after a slew of technical difficulties, which seems to be the norm here, because apparently I suck with technology for millennial, we're finally going. So, before we get going and talk about your book, tell me a little bit about yourself as an author.
Well, my name is Isaac Anderson. I'm an author out here, indie author out in Oklahoma, which the internet problems is probably on my side. Um, uh, I've always loved telling stories. I've done it ever since I was a little kid. One of my the first book that I ever read was Magic Tree House, and that kind of just opened the possibilities of what words can do in my mind. I was probably like, I don't know, 5 or 6 at the time. But I live and work here in Oklahoma. I help out with I help run a little technology startup out here. We build websites and things like that. And on the side, I try to write.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like you're most authors that I have on here, which is we got our day job and then we have our passion. I'm right alongside with you. Sorry if I didn't catch it. Where'd you say you're from?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Gotcha. So I was checking you out on Amazon and I loved your bio.
Thank you.
Let me just read part of it. It says, you can find Isaac fretting over plot details and character development anywhere books are sold. So I got to know a little bit about your writing style. What made you say those specific lines?
You kind of cut in and out a little bit, but for my writing style, I would say that it varies on what project I'm working on. For the Garden Maze, I try to write in a very storybook, Princess Bride kind of way. I hope I nailed it, but for other projects, it's much more more Hunger Games kind of prose, where things are very simple and I don't know how do you describe that?
You know, I do know what you're saying because I remember I read The Hunger Games, a decade ago or whenever it came out. And I remember thinking, like, it feels like it's written for high schoolers, but they're very dark and deep themes.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like this dichotomy of the language is super simple to understand, but, like, people are getting dismembered.
Well, I think what the inspiration I got from Hunger Games was when I first started out writing, I thought that the more complicated the sentence was and the bigger words you used, the more of a writer you were. But reading Hunger Games and even Gregor the Overlander before that, that really kind of made me realize that the goal is not to impress, the goal is to be understood. I guess if that makes sense. So like, I used to use semicolons all the time. Now I try to just do commas and periods.
Yeah.
If you can tell a story and have the reader go, wow, it's a great story, but not necessarily remember you've succeeded a little bit. I mean, you still want, you hope that they turn the book over and go, oh, I'll look that guy up again sometime. But the goal is to my goal is to make sure the reader is never confused, and I don't waste their time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think overall, like, most people love reading their own writing, I should hope. And I love reading my own writing, but sometimes I'll be rereading something that I've written and my mind will start to wander. And then I'll be halfway down the page and not like comprehend anything that I have written myself. And that's when I'm like, okay, I didn't make it engaging enough, or I made it too complex and my mind didn't really care. And so that's usually the stuff that you have to revisit. So that's really cool that you know that about yourself as an author, that making it simple is not necessarily a bad thing, especially when you have a story to tell. Like, you want to keep people engaged. But let's revisit the other comparison you made, which is The Princess Bride. And so, I love the movie The Princess Bride. I've seen it countless times. I've never actually read the book, so
Oh
if
boy.
you're specifically referring to the book, I apologize. But I think that movie is so great. And there's a quote in it that stuck out to me that I looked up just before this, so I'm going to read it here. So, at the beginning, the grandson's asking the grandfather, he goes, "Hey, does it have any sports in it?" The grandfather goes, "Are you kidding? There's fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, and miracles." So I have to ask, does your book in any way compare to The Princess Bride on all those levels?
Oh boy. There's torture.
Okay.
It's true love. Giants. There are chases and escapes. So yeah, I think I hit all the hallmarks there. I hope. I mean, there's no way that I hit the perfection of the prose for The Princess Bride, but I tried. Yeah, if you've never read the book, you should pick up a book. Just pick it up and just. It is probably one of the finest written stories like ever.
I've never read the book like I heard you talking about it. The movie is in itself a masterpiece as well. So if it's anything like the book, then I get it. I think that one major part of The Princess Bride that I really appreciated in the movie, and I hope it came from the book as well, was the humor. So do you have any humor in your book, and how does that play out?
Yeah, I have humor in there. If there wasn't any humor, then it would be very, very bleak. Horrible things happen in the garden maze. But they don't. I mean, I guess they do feel horrible. But at the same time, I try to have as much levity as possible. I have certain characters that'll pop in that'll kind of ground the story in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way. And then I have other characters kind of pull the rug out from under you. So, yes, I would say there is humor in the garden maze. Without it, I don't think it would work at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a good book has so many different ups and downs. Like, there are some books that are kind of just level, the same pace and the same plot all throughout the whole thing. And it kind of works for those in certain cases. But a good book really just pulls at your emotions in so many different ways. You got the anger, and you got the sadness, and you got the love, and you got the laughs. So if you manage to capture that, then you're definitely going to have an audience in that regard. But I guess another question I have then is, what kind of stuff do you like reading, and did you pull any inspiration from the stuff that you read into your own writing?
Oh, definitely. I started writing The Garden Maze because my first project, the one I've been working on this for a decade, is kind of a tribute to Redwall and Brian Jakes.
Yeah.
So
I actually saw him in person before he passed away. That was pretty
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I adore those Redwall books. I wanted to do something that was similar, same kind of genre, animals, Middle Ages kind of thing, because I haven't really found very many other stories that kind of do that. I did my research. I found maybe 2 others, but for the most part, it's your typical high fantasy that looks like Tolkien, or it's modern day drama. But that project was it was humongous. I'm still working on it. I wanted to finish something. So I kind of I put it to the side, and I had this garden maze idea that I wanted to explore, and purposely I approached it thinking this isn't a long book, this is a short book. Favor brevity over excess. So approaching it. What was your first question? I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent.
I mean, I don't mind tangents. There's no agenda here. My original question was, what what are some of your favorite books, and did you draw inspiration from them?
Oh,
So
inspirations.
You're kind of
Okay.
going down the right path.
Okay, so inspirations for Song of Bones, the big animal epic, is definitely Brian Jakes, and then also I have quite a bit of Suzanne Collins in there with Hunger Games, and especially Greg with Overlander. What else did I have? I made a list yesterday. I don't know. There's Lemony Snicket. I loved those books as a kid. I loved the mystery and the way that he wrote. And then moving over to Garden Maze, Princess Bride was a big influence. Also, oddly enough, oh man, it's tipped my tongue. No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. Which is odd because if you read The Garden Maze, it has its dark elements, but it's pretty fun and lighthearted at the same time. I loved how have you ever read any of his stuff?
I have not.
He's very unique. I've only read No Country, but he doesn't use quotations. If someone is speaking, it's no different from any other sentence, but the way he writes, you are never lost. It's always completely clear who's talking and when they're talking. He uses only periods and commas.
My editor would never let me get away with that. I don't know how he got away with that. That's ridiculous.
It was really, really cool. I wanna for my big project, I have sequences where a character will be dreaming, and I want to write dreams in that way with no quotations and just periods and full stops. And anyway, it's very kind of experimental. But for Garden Maze, I loved his simplicity, so I wanted to make sure all the sentences were as simple as possible. I'm sure that there's some sentences in there. They're still probably a little too complicated or too complex, but it was a fun exercise in restraint, I guess, for me.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because writing is such an art, and it's so subjective in a lot of ways. Maybe you want to create something that's so different and so unique that works for you. And you can just say, screw it. If other people don't like it, I don't care. This is what I'm putting out there. And then maybe you'll gain a cult following of people that really do appreciate that. So there's, the mass consumerism part of it, which is, yes, everything is going to be perfect grammatically, and it's going to, have 18 chapters that are each 750 words, or whatever the hallmark formula for books is. But then we can all have our own art as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it'd be cool if I did something absolutely bonkers and 100 people loved it.
I mean, that's more than love my stuff because I'm not even published. But let's talk for a second. You told me a little bit about your writing process, which is you have this longer series that you've kind of been working on for a long time, and then you decided you just need to get something out, and you started The Garden Maze. So I'm actually in a very similar position. I have a sci-fi series that I finished the first novel for, and I'm halfway through the second one, and I was kind of I got this idea, one of millions, of course, and maybe I should just write this instead to start. So I'm writing a fantasy right now as well. But tell me what your process has been like, and do you regret sometimes taking a step back, or are you happy that you full-heartedly went forward? Not foolheartedly went forward with The Garden Maze, or what's your thought process been on that?
I wholeheartedly recommend it, especially if your dream project is humongous, like Song of Bones is. Mm-hmm. The feeling of actually finishing a book was euphoric, and then of course I had to go through and edit everything. But I mean, actually typing the end and having the last chapter, this is it, this is the final part of the story, was very, very cool. I mean, I had to go rewrite the entire ending again later, but actually, having that rough, finished book was a golden moment. So yeah, if anyone's having trouble finishing a big project, finish a little project, and it'll give you a big boost to go back to the other one.
Awesome. That's good to hear. What is your daily writing like? Like, obviously, we talked at the beginning, you have a day job, as do I and most other authors. Do you write every day, or how does that work?
I used to write every day. Things have been crazy busy here in Oklahoma. Next month, things will be simplified a bunch. I'm moving to a new city and just simplifying things. I live on a farm right now, so there's farm stuff you got to do. So I'm simplifying my life a lot. So I want to write every day again. Right now, I write pretty much every Sunday. There's a coffee shop and a brewery I like to go between. I sit down and I write for about 3 or 4 hours every Sunday.
Nice. That's cool. Do you like to get drunk while you write? I've heard pluses and minuses from lots of authors about that.
No, I only drink the one beer when I'm at the brewery. If getting drunk helps you write, I mean, hey, more power to you, I guess. I'm a little bit afraid of what might happen if I get drunk and start writing. For Garden Maze, I wrote one scene that was so dark, I was sober. So I really don't want to know what'll happen if I get inebriated and start writing dark scenes. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you can give yourself a little bit of forgiveness for writing it if you're drunk. You're like, oh, that wasn't actually me that wrote that. You know?
Well, the really, really horrible thing I wrote, I fixed it just by changing the verbs. If you used it too awful of a verb, it becomes like, whoa. But if you just tone down the verb just a little bit here and there, then everything thinks, oh yeah, normal, this happened. Okay, that's fine. And the reader just goes through it much easier, I guess.
Yeah, but I feel like you can lose a lot of power if you use the wrong verbs. Like I wrote,
Oh, yeah.
And it's by no means a finished product, but I wrote a rape scene, and part of me, when the character is looking back on it with someone else is looking back on it with the character, and I went back and forth as to if they should say you raped them, use that actual verb rape, or not. And I'm still back and forth on it because I want the reader to think, what actually happened, what truly happened. So
Yeah.
verbs in and of themselves are powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that would be like... I mean, none of my stuff has gone that direction. But if I were to go that direction, I would... I don't know, like, because that gets into a very weird kind of almost... you can be very icky if you're not careful, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess leaving
and
things...
going back to the power...
Oh,
Going
yeah,
back
yeah.
to the power of words, like rape is a powerful word. Like just to say it, like it's a very you get like a guttural punch in your stomach when you say it. And so putting it on the page for someone to read and think about is powerful as opposed to just squeaking around it like, oh, he had his way with her or something like.
Oh, you definitely need to say rape. I mean,
Yeah.
if rape happened, then that's what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think through like I don't think I would ever write a rape scene. I think I would write like just afterward or maybe before. I don't know. And I guess that's just down to personal preference.
Yeah. Well, enough about mine. We're here to talk about yours still. So tell me a little bit about the universe of your book. And I feel like it's not, from what I've heard about it, it's not like an epic like Lord of the Rings where they're traversing an entire world with tons of different races and cities and stuff like that. It seems like it's more localized. So tell me about the world building that you did within this very localized scene, if I'm even right about that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So for the Garden Maze, I've had the idea for kind of a universe for a while now. Kind of like my inspiration for it was I was thinking about I used to play with Bionicles as a kid, And I remember the map on all the little instruction booklets had that the different color coded areas. This is the fireplace. This is the jungle place. This is the desert place. So I liked the idea of making some kind of fantasy world that had those kinds of distinctions, and not like as obvious as this is the fireplace, this is the water place, but more like in style. Like this is where the horror stories happen. This is where the love stories happen, and there's mixtures of them. So the land is called Norland, and so the garden maze is just one of the little spots in Norland. I wanted to make a world where I could write a story by picking any spot on the map and say, "Oh, I know this place has this problem. I'll follow this character and see where he goes." So the garden maze has a very Alice in Wonderland kind of down the rabbit hole kind of feel, because the two characters go into this cursed hedge maze, and nothing follows like the normal rules of space and time. So it's very kind of fun house in the way that the story is. So the area that I picked for the garden maze is kind of in this ruinous place called Purg, and it was Norland's first kingdom, and it's kind of based on Atlantis a little bit, where like they died off a long time ago. No one knows what their deal was, and there's this magic hedge maze there, and anyone who goes in it, they either come out like that was weird, there's nothing in there, or they're gone forever. So approaching that story, I wanted it to feel kind of Alice in Wonderland, kind of Funhouse, kind of like topsy-turvy. Nothing makes logical sense in the way that the space works. I mean, there are rules that I don't necessarily share, but the characters are lost and confused in a way that I hope is very fun.
So, touching on what you just said, rules that you don't necessarily share, do you have pages and pages of backstory written out, or is this all just in your head? Or do you kind of just make it up as you go?
I have some notes, like so an article that I read a long time ago. I tried to find it for this to reference it, but I couldn't find it. The article was about how you have writers who do the world building in massive pages, and writers that do world building with like one sentence. So like the encapsulation of like 1,000 years of history is told in 3 sentences, like with just subtext. So I tried to do that as much as possible in the garden maze. So I do have documents about the history of this land and the people who live there, and the problems that they're facing at the moment. But I don't necessarily spell that out all the way for the reader, I guess. Like you kind of get some hints, like the knight talks to a character, and the character asks him if the king still sleeps, and they have a little conversation about the sleeping king, and that's all that I talk about the sleeping king in this book. But I hope that it gives it like a lived-in kind of like Star Warsy kind of feel. Because in that first Star Wars movie, they mention the Clone Wars offhand, and they don't mention it again. They mention I don't even think they say Wookiee in the first movie, but just the way that they wrote that first movie, how they made that universe feel very lived in and alive by just talking about stuff. Like Luke talks about the land speeder, and it's not going to make as much money because the new model just launched or whatever, and just little world tidbits that the audience, that's all they get, but they feel like there's much more there.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I think I myself get too caught up in, okay, if I'm going to mention something, I have to explain everything. And I think you brought a little bit of wisdom there, which is make it feel lived in by just mentioning things that if the if the reader really wants to know, maybe they'll read the appendice after or something like that. I could see that. That's good.
Yeah, and I really don't want to add any appendices ever. If I don't talk about something, I want the readers to talk about it. and kind of,
Okay.
well, I guess another inspiration for, I guess, Norland was, I remember when Lost was first coming on TV, and I hated the ending, but all the stuff leading up to that, we would sit down on the table, we'd talk about our theories about what was happening, and that was like the most fun part of Lost, was talking about what on earth was going on in between episodes. So I really want to kind of encourage that kind of that intrigue and that mystery that kind of just activates your imagination, with also having like real payoffs at the end for what's going on.
You just want people to write fan fiction about your stuff later on, is what you're saying.
Oh, that's that. Oh, ooh. That'd be very flattering. That'd be very weird. That'd be very, very strange.
And wait till you're dead, then they can do it. That's fine.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I won't care then.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your publishing process. Are you self-published or traditionally published?
I'm self-published.
Okay, and what's that been like for you?
Well, I sell books every once in a while. I haven't really focused on the marketing side of things too much. I ran a bunch of ads on Twitter and Instagram, and that didn't do very well. I got lots of followers, but no one really wanted to buy a book. And the biggest thing that I've done that helps book sales is stuff like this. I did an interview with Dominish Books, and he had this little indie author showcase, and I got I want to say 20 book sales from that. So not a lot, but it's...
Well, don't expect 20 book sales from this, because I only have 40 followers, so that'd be a pretty good sales rate if you did.
No worries at all. If I make no sales from this, that's fine. It's fun to talk about books and with other authors and things like that. But as far as publishing, I just did the standard KDP. I have a brother-in-law who's very, very pedantic with his grammar, so he was willing to edit it, and the book was short enough that was actually doable.
How many words is it?
It is. Oh man, how much was it? It is I want to say it's 28,000.
Okay.
It's 28 or 29. It's just shy of technically novel. It's it's
a novella.
It's a long novella.
Okay.
Printed out.
And
it's
I don't think there's anything wrong with writing short books, because I always wanted to write long books because I loved reading Lord of the Rings growing up and stuff, so I've got that in me. But sometimes people don't want to hear about the whole world. They just want to get a quick in and out, have something that they read for a week before bed, and then they're done with it. And so you just got to find your target audience for that.
Yeah. Garden Maze is definitely for people who want to read in one sitting. Song of Bones is that's my big boy. That's the big one. That one is too big. At last I checked, it was 700,000 words or something like that. It was.
I've not written that much in my life.
It is. It's too big. Right now, in between working on Garden Maze sequel stuff, I'm just going through and just chopping brutally things out of Song of Bones. You can go to the next book, or you two characters are the same person. You can go together, and just doing stuff like that.
Nice. All right. Well, do you want to read anything for me today?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I was practicing today. I hope I don't stumble too much. So yeah. So this is just the first page and a half of the Garden Maze. The puppet smiled on the striped stage. Bright red circles stood out on its cheeks, and its jingling hat lopped on its head in a lazy point. It shook a stick in its hand. The other puppet never saw him coming. Punch! Punch! Children pointed, cheered. Some tried to warn the other puppet, even as they laughed. He's there! He's there! The oblivious fat puppet cocked his head and asked in a nasaled breath, "Huh?" Punch thumped his paper skull, knocking his hat into the giggling children below. A knight and his squire watched all this from afar. The man stood tall and rail thin, dressed in polished leather and wool dyed to green. The boy wore simple garments, gray and girded, with a wide belt. His face was thin and freckled between his nest of dark hair. "And how culture rots," the knight said, twitching his mustache and turning to view the wide field with its bright, billowing tents. People of all sorts milled about, some to view an act or feat, and others eager to spend whatever coin they'd mine from their neighbors' pockets. The Century Fair was certainly a sight. Folk had come from every corner of Norland to see it, to see if the stories their grandfathers had spoken were true, to gaze in wonder at the towers built in a day and the multitude of flags raised to such heights that they roared like an ocean overhead. There were folk from the Timber Drop and the Desert of Rot. He saw the hulking boar beasts and the goblins who rode them. He heard the bellows of the warmen as they called their challenges and struck death blows in the painted arenas. For 500 years, the Century Fair blossomed here among the ruins of Purg, Norland's first kingdom. The knight turned back to the children as they roared with glee. Punch had turned the other puppet's shirt overhead, revealing dotted undershorts. At his side, his squire spoke. "Couldn't we get a little closer?" he said. "The Viscount said we'd had the evening to ourselves after all." "And such a gift one does not waste on puppets," the knight said. He turned again to scan the crowd. He looked for nobles, merchants, anyone who might win an audience with the Viscount, currently drinking himself to oblivion with his friends inside a thrumming red tent center of field. A tug at his sleeve. "Sir," the squire said. "Hush now, I'm working." "Yes, but do you enjoy living in the service to the Viscount? If we're clever, we can get out from under the bumbling oaf, find a real pennant to fly." The squire pulled again at his arm. "But, sir—" "What, blast it?" The knight spun, following the squire's gaze to see the purple blanched face of the Viscount. The overflowing man stumbled for them over the turf like a turkey dipped in pudding. "Sir Knight!" the Viscount cried. He gurgled a conspiratorial laugh and took the knight's shoulder, whispering into his beard in a bounding, drunken voice. "How would you like to make us a bit of money, eh?" The knight unwound the man from his person. In all their travels over the past few months, the Viscount showed interest in only two things, wine and coin, preferably mixed. "Money, my lord?" the knight said. "Yes, yes." The Viscount ran his arm over his mouth, dragging his lip. "I said that, didn't I? Oh, you really should try the wine under the—" The Viscount blinked and laughed in a blasting shout. "Is that punch? Oh, I love punch."
Nice. Let
There
me
you
give
go.
you a round of applause. Oh, it's loading. The round of applause is loading. Give it a second here. Oh, gosh. I'll just clap for you because it's taking so long. There you go.
Thank you.
So I really liked how you did the voice. And I know you felt like you were stumbling a little bit there on a couple of the parts, but I think you did the voice excellently. So if you ever
thank
want to
you.
read your own stuff, I highly suggest it. I was really engaged by the Viscount's voice.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Nice, yeah. So, final question before I let you go. And hopefully the round of applause doesn't just pick up right now in the middle of me talking because it's lagging or something like that. But what are some of the messages that you want to send out to people in your writing? Or is this truly just entertainment?
I want to entertain. I don't want to tell you what to think or how to be, other than be decent. Don't run around killing people. But yeah, I want my stuff, especially the garden maze stuff, to be an escape. I want it to be kind of a ray of sunshine. For Song of Bones, that stuff is very, what would you call it? It takes a lot of stuff from kind of Nazi Germany. Takes a lot of stuff from Holocaust kind of things. So a lot of the themes and ideas in Song of Bones is much more serious and grounded in actual reality. But for Garden Maze, I wanted to write something that, well, of course, everything I approach, I want this to be true. I want to write something that my great great grandchildren can pick up and say, "Oh, my great great granddad wrote this." I don't know very much about my great great grandfather, or even the people before him. I kind of want to leave something behind, and the best thing you can leave behind, other than like, I don't know, a criminal record, is a book.
Yeah. Awesome. You touched on a couple points that a lot of people bring up independently, so it's nice to see that you said them all, which is like, I want to leave a legacy for someone after me to come back and maybe know me a little bit, because we leave bits and pieces of ourselves in all of our writing. And then also just entertainment. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I ask that question to everybody, and some people have deep meanings, some people just say, no, it's for entertainment. And I think entertainment is, in and of itself, a worthy endeavor to try and pull people out of their mundane or dreary lives, or lives that they just, quite frankly, don't like, and you can give them something to look forward to. So I would give you another round of applause, except for everything is just breaking today, so hopefully no more technical difficulties. But any final words before I let you go?
Buy my book, The Garden Maze. It's free on Kindle Unlimited, and paperback I think is $11, and if you want to get it just digital, I think it's like $3, or it's like $2.90 something. I don't know.
Awesome. I will put a link to that in the description, and everybody have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you.